You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Challenge us at Wexford Insurances 0818 31 30 30.
I'm joined now by Paul Cronin of Carbon Monoxide Detection Wexford. Paul, you might start by telling me a bit about yourself, please.
Yes, well, I'm 35 years in Limerick. I was originally born in the UK. Our family moved over here about 35 years ago, as I said, and lived in Limerick all that time. Recently just moved to Wexford.
I know that you've recently set this business up, Carbon Monoxide Wexford. Where did the idea for the business come from?
Well, it's an interesting story, really, because at the time, about 8 years ago, I felt very unwell, and I finally found out that it was due to carbon monoxide. What had happened is there'd been a small leak in my boiler, my gas boiler, and through that I became quite ill. So I finally realised it was carbon monoxide, and that led me on to this business now.
So, Paul, you suffer from carbon monoxide poisoning yourself in some respects. What were the symptoms attached to that at the time that led you to go to the doctor in the first place?
Well, Karl, I didn't realise I was suffering from carbon monoxide at the time, and that's the problem. There wasn't very much information out there at the time with carbon monoxide. So I just felt overall unwell. I couldn't stand up sometimes. I had dizzy spells. I had blurred vision. I had memory loss. I was quite unwell at one stage and thought maybe that I was possibly had some sort of brain problem. So I went for a CT scan and an MRI scan. Doctors couldn't find anything. It's only then I started looking on the internet. You know, the internet can be a great thing for these kind of things. And I saw something about carbon monoxide, and it triggered something in me. I knew that the boiler was an old boiler, and so I got it tested and found that it was leaking. Small leak, but enough to cause problems in my body.
When you finally realised that you were suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning, what did you do next?
Well, first I was kind of very worried about it because I wasn't sure what was going to happen to me. So after looking again on the internet, I realised that there is no medicine, there are no tablets for this. The only thing that helps with carbon monoxide poisoning is fresh air, is oxygen.
Explain to me exactly what the carbon monoxide does to your insides.
Well, carbon monoxide, once you breathe it in, you inhale it, it rushes to your blood 200 times faster than oxygen. So it smothers the oxygen that's already in the blood, and then it doesn't allow the other oxygen through the air to get to your blood. So you become very ill very quickly. You sometimes lose consciousness within a few minutes. So it affects the blood. It also affects the internal organs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your brain. It's a neurological poison as well. It affects the brain very fast, so you can get very dizzy, you can pass out. It actually mimics a lot of other illnesses like flu. It can give you palpitations, heart palpitations. So it's quite a great, they call it the great mimic, because it resembles a lot of other illnesses, and it's often misdiagnosed by doctors.
Paul, we're all very, very familiar with carbon monoxide being an emission from a car. Where else would it be common to find carbon monoxide gases?
Well, carbon monoxide gas comes from any carbon-related fuel that you burn. So it comes from coal, gas, oil, wood, even candles give it off. So anything that comes from the ground and burns and doesn't burn sufficiently can cause carbon monoxide poisoning.
What are the big concerns you have today in respect to carbon monoxide?
Well, Karl, the concerns we have is that people don't seem to understand enough about carbon monoxide. They don't seem to maintain their equipment in the homes well enough. They often have their boilers outside and they don't get them maintained. They should be maintained every year, at least once a year. Chimneys are another problem. They don't get their chimneys cleaned as often as they should. So it's a major concern for us, and we're trying to get the message out there that carbon monoxide is extremely dangerous, and you need to maintain all your fuel devices in the home, such as gas fires, coal fires, super SIRS. There's a lot of problems with super SIRS. Gas cookers, again, they're not maintained as well as they should be. So we're trying to get a message out there to let people know how dangerous it is. The
end result in relation to it, or the most serious concern that you'd have in relation to carbon monoxide poisoning, is ultimately somebody could die from it. Is that a major problem in this country?
It is. What we find now is that a lot of people see the death side of it as rare, when in fact we found that there is a lot of deaths attributed to other diseases that are caused by carbon monoxide, such as heart attacks, such as strokes. Even people that have multiple sclerosis, it's linked also to carbon monoxide. So we have to be very careful in understanding the dangers of carbon monoxide and what it can do to your body. In the USA, there's 2,000 deaths per year from carbon monoxide, and in the UK it's over 400, and here in Ireland it's 40 to 50 that are directly linked to carbon monoxide.
I know, Paul, that one of the most high-profile cases that has come to national media attention over the last 12 months has been the case in the hotel in Kinsale. Tell me a bit about that, please.
Yes, this was a very tragic case. It was to do with a Limerick lady who'd gone down on a hen party. She had complained of being ill in the hotel and she'd gone to the doctor. And unfortunately, again, because it's often misdiagnosed, the doctor thought she was suffering from food poisoning. So he sent her back to the very place that was actually killing her, which is the hotel. The carbon monoxide has leaked from a boiler system that had recently been tested and serviced by a plumber. But unfortunately he'd blocked one of the vents, which led to a large increase of carbon monoxide that went into the hotel, and this affected the lady in a very bad way, and she ended up dying from it. Her sister, who was also in the room, ended up in hospital, as did 8 other people in the hotel.
Paul, carbon monoxide poisoning is as relevant to business owners as it is to homeowners out there today. You touched on something there in the last answer, which was in relation to vents, and vents being blocked up in buildings and in rooms, specifically in homes and that. From your experience, is that the norm out there? Is there vents in each room? And secondly, do you find that many of them are actually blocked up when there are vents there?
Yes, Karl, you're right there. What happens a lot of the time is that people don't understand the importance of ventilation in a home. So whereas regulations, the building regulations state that there should be a vent in each habitable room, especially where there's a fuel burning device, often we find when we're out there that businesses and homes have vents that are often blocked because a lot of people don't understand the dangers of carbon monoxide and the need for ventilation in a home. The building regulations state that every house or business should have a vent in a habitable room, and it's often not the case. So we find it very difficult when we go to houses and we see that people have blocked up their vents. Often we found plastic and even trousers stuffed into vents, trying to block the vents. We also find these sliding vents, which we find are a problem as well, where people will just slide them across and forget about them, or they'll paint over them. So it is a huge concern because without ventilation, you really have a problem. Carbon monoxide will just keep building up until it has a place to go.
With carbon monoxide being known as the silent killer, why isn't it getting more media attention?
Well, this is an issue that we have a problem with as well, because we believe that there should be far more television campaigns on carbon monoxide. In the UK and in America, there's a lot more interest in carbon monoxide, and the laws have been passed there to protect people in their homes where they have to have carbon monoxide alarms. Unfortunately, in this country at the moment, there is no legislation presently, but there's due to be, at the end of this year, legislation for new houses. But of course that doesn't help the problem with older houses. You
have the business up and running now in Wexford. How's it going for you so far?
It's going quite well. So we're up and running for the last 7 weeks here in Wexford, and we're trying to be as visible as possible, trying to make awareness of carbon monoxide and the dangers and the threats from it. We've joined the Chamber of Commerce. We've gone to business meetings and networking meetings. We're trying to get a presence known in the locality, in business sense, and with residents and residents associations. Overall, we're just trying to make a general awareness of how dangerous carbon monoxide is. Let people know that we're out there, and if they've got any problems with carbon monoxide or are worried about their health, they know they can come and talk to us.
And Paul, from your experience, what are the myths out there associated with carbon monoxide?
I'm glad you asked that question, because one of the biggest myths is that it comes from just gas, home heating gas or gas for cooking. Carbon monoxide comes from any fuel that you burn. If there's not enough oxygen getting to the fuel, you will create carbon monoxide, and it is one of the most poisonous gases known to mankind. So the issue we have is getting people to understand, especially in the likes of Wexford Town and Wexford County, where there is no gas pipe, that carbon monoxide will come from your oil, it will come from your fire, it will come from your stove, it will come from any appliance that is not maintained properly.
And Paul, is the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning more prevalent in winter than summer, for instance?
Often that is the case, but during the summer a lot of people use barbecues indoor, well, not indoors, but in garages, and that if there's rain out there they'll put a canvas over it. This is equally as dangerous, because even though they think there's ventilation around With carbon monoxide, if there's not enough ventilation, then it will build up. So if you have a barbecue outside, make sure it's far away from the home. If you have a garage, please don't put a barbecue in a garage. So there are things in the summer that you have to be aware of. Recently, there was a young girl that died in England because she had a charcoal grill put in the tent to keep them warm and left it out then the following evening, and she became carbon monoxide poisoned from it.
And does carbon monoxide poisoning affect the elder generation more so than the younger generation, Paul?
No, this is another myth. It doesn't really matter what age you are. In fact, the younger you are often can cause carbon monoxide build-up a lot faster because your metabolism works faster. Therefore, you breathe in carbon monoxide at a faster rate. With the elderly, it can often cause problems if they have already got medical problems like heart problems or emphysema or asthma or anything like that. Carbon monoxide exacerbates all those kind of illnesses.
I'd like you to give our listeners some tips in relation to how they can protect themselves against carbon monoxide poisoning, please.
Yes, Karl, there's a couple of points we'd like to make your listeners aware of. One of the most important is ventilation. Always keep your vents open. Do not close them. Do not block them. If you have a chimney, don't block a chimney. Often we find that people have stuffed things up the chimney to block the draft. Very important that you leave that ventilation open. Secondly, maintain all your equipment, your appliances. Always get them serviced every year, at least once a year. Thirdly, if you ever feel unwell in the house and more than one person is feeling the same symptoms, and go outside in fresh air, if you start to feel better, there's a good chance it's carbon monoxide related. Headaches, nausea, vomiting, any of those things, flu-like symptoms. Outside, take the fresh air in. If you start to feel better, then it's probably carbon monoxide related and you need to go and see your doctor.
Thank you for sharing those tips with our listeners. And can I take this opportunity to wish you continued success with your new business?
You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.